They say a storm reveals the true nature of a man, not when the skies are calm, but when the winds howl, when the ground trembles, and the world seems to conspire against your peace. That is where the truth of your spirit emerges. Imagine this. The noise is deafening, your heart is racing, chaos surrounds you, but you remain still, like a mountain unmoved by the wind. What if I told you that kind of inner stillness isn't fantasy, but a forgotten art, an ancient mastery, carved into the very soul of Stoicism? Pause, take a breath, and type this in the comments right now. I am the calm in the storm. Let those words settle into your bones. And if you're ready to unlock the power that even emperors and warriors sought in their darkest hours, then like this video now, because what you're about to learn could change the way you face every challenge life throws at you. We've all felt it. That moment when the pressure is too much, when emotions claw at the edges of your mind, threatening to tear through your self-control. The argument with a loved one that leaves your chest tight. The sudden news that shatters your plans. The overwhelming tide of modern life crashing again and again against the fragile barriers of your patience. But what if you could endure all of it with the grace of still water? Today we're peeling back the veil on a truth buried beneath centuries of noise. The ancient Stoic art of inner resilience. Not the watered-down version that's thrown around in self-help slogans, but the raw, original force that Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca wielded like a sacred shield. You won't just hear what Stoicism is. You'll feel it in your marrow. Understand its power at a level that shifts the way you breathe under pressure. We'll journey into the forgotten chambers of ancient philosophy, trace the footsteps of emperors who ruled with compassion amid chaos, and unravel the mystery of how to remain unmoved, even when life feels like it's falling apart. You'll discover the hidden link between emotion and power, and how the ancients transformed fear and anger into fuel for greatness. But this isn't just theory. By the end, you'll walk away with practices you can use, yes, you, the next time stress comes knocking. Not to suppress your feelings, but to transcend them, to look chaos in the eye and not blink. So stay with me. Every moment from here forward is a step into ancient wisdom reborn, a path not only to peace, but to unshakable strength. And once you begin to walk it, you'll never see pressure, pain, or panic the same way again. Shall we begin in a forgotten corner of history, long before self-help books and wellness influencers promised quick fixes for inner peace? There existed a lineage of seekers who didn't run from suffering. They studied it. They sat with it. They carved its lessons into stone and memory. These were the Stoics. And what they discovered wasn't merely a philosophy. It was a spiritual armor, forged in silence and fire. It is said that Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, began his journey not in triumph, but in ruin. Shipwrecked, left with nothing. He wandered into a bookshop in Athens and stumbled upon the teachings of Socrates. It was there, amidst the wreckage of his old life, that he realized something extraordinary. External misfortunes cannot touch the fortress within. That realization sparked a fire that would spread across empires, shaping the minds of slaves, sages, and sovereigns. Epictetus was born into slavery, stripped of freedom, of status, of comfort. He learned to master the only thing no one could take from him, his mind. He would later say, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." These weren't just words, they were weapons. In the face of beatings, betrayal, and loss, he remained composed, inwardly free, untouchable. And then there was Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, commander of legions, ruler of a vast and turbulent empire. Amid plagues, wars, and political deceit, he penned meditations in secret, reflections on impermanence, control, and virtue. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. These weren't idle musings. They were instructions, for himself and for us. These ancient men faced pressures beyond comprehension, yet they stood firm, not because they were emotionless, but because they understood the nature of emotion, its triggers, its illusions. They saw anger as a fire that burns the vessel it inhabits, fear as fog that blinds the spirit, desire as a wave that erodes reason. They studied these forces not to escape them, but to rise above them. But here's the mystery few understand. Stoicism was never meant to be cold or distant. It was never about suppression. It was about transmutation, turning rage into clarity, grief into wisdom, chaos into composure. This is the secret most modern interpretations miss. The Stoics didn't deny feeling. They refined it. And so, through centuries, Stoic wisdom traveled, hidden in manuscripts, whispered in monasteries, embedded in the silent strength of warriors, mystics, and rebels who faced impossible odds with unshakable calm. But something changed. In the noise of modern life, we began to confuse chaos with urgency. We let the storm in, and in doing so, we forgot the ancient silence that once steadied the human soul. Today, you are not just watching a video. You are listening to echoes from the past, echoes that still vibrate with truth. You are reclaiming a lost inheritance, a compass that once guided emperors and philosophers through the darkest nights of the soul. And this compass still points true. It still whispers in the quiet moments. Hold, breathe, witness, do not react, choose. Because in that pause between impulse and response lies everything. Let that settle in your chest for a moment. Because in the next part, we'll begin to uncover how these timeless principles actually work, how the Stoics engineered their emotional mastery, and how you can too, not with effort, but with understanding. Imagine standing at the edge of a battlefield, not one of swords and shields, but of emotions, thoughts, and invisible forces pulling you in every direction. Around you, chaos screams, the sting of betrayal, the heat of anger, the cold paralysis of fear. But within you, silence, presence, a stillness so deep it becomes impenetrable. That is the Stoic mind. And to truly understand it, we must unearth what the ancients guarded like sacred fire. You see, the Stoics didn't see life as something to conquer. They saw it as a test, a series of divine initiations designed to shape the soul. Every obstacle was an invitation, every stressor a teacher. The key wasn't to avoid pain or pretend it didn't exist. It was to meet it with eyes wide open and say, "You do not control me. I choose my response." This begins with a concept the Stoics called the dichotomy of control, a spiritual principle disguised as logic. There are things within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your character, and things forever outside of it. Other people's opinions, the weather, your past, even your own body's fragility. The moment you waste energy on what cannot be changed, you hand your peace over to chaos. But once you learn to focus only on what is within your grasp, you shift dimensions. Suddenly, that stressful situation, whether it's a looming deadline, a toxic relationship, or a financial collapse, loses its grip. Not because it disappears, but because you've stopped resisting reality. You've begun to dance with it. This shift is not passive. It's not a surrender into weakness. It's the most profound act of strength. Because what the Stoics knew is this: the world is fire, and you are either consumed by it or are refined. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day. He knew power could corrupt, stress could break even the most disciplined man. But he returned to his journal, to his mind, to his center. In one entry he writes, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Meaning, stress is not an event. It's an interpretation. Change the lens, and the storm transforms into wind pushing your sails. But how do you change the lens? Through discipline, through self-inquiry, through radical honesty. Epictetus taught that every time we are disturbed, it's because we are clinging to an expectation, a belief that things should be different, and that should is the seed of suffering. Let go of it, and suddenly the noise dims. Clarity dawns. Seneca took it further. He said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of what we stress over never actually happens. The conversation we rehearse, the judgment we fear, the failure we dread. It's theater of the mind. The Stoic, knowing this, steps backstage and sees the illusion for what it is, not to become numb, but to awaken. In this awakening, something beautiful occurs. You start to realize that stressful situations are not enemies. They are invitations, not obstacles to your peace, but gateways to discovering it. This is why Stoicism feels mystical, because it asks you to reverse the natural flow. Instead of running from fire, you walk into it, not to burn, but to emerge forged. This is not theory. This is transformation. And in the next part, we will dive even deeper into the paradoxes, the lesser-known teachings, and the hidden powers Stoicism unlocks when practiced with the heart of a seeker, not just the mind of a philosopher. Are you ready to go deeper? Now we must descend into the deeper chambers of the Stoic soul, beyond the surface of quotes and quiet resolve, into the paradoxes that reveal the real alchemy of this ancient path. Because Stoicism isn't merely about restraint, it's about freedom, not just from the world, but from the illusions you carry within it. Here's the truth. The Stoic is not cold. He is not numb, detached, or emotionless. The true Stoic feels everything. He simply refuses to be enslaved by those feelings. This is the great misunderstanding that has stripped Stoicism of its sacred depth in modern times. To remain composed is not to shut the heart. It is to anchor it. Let me tell you something the world doesn't often admit. Your emotions lie to you. In a stressful moment, they scream urgency where there is none. They amplify threat where there's only discomfort. They trigger reactions that, once the storm passes, leave behind regret and confusion. The Stoics knew this, and they built their lives around one question: is this within my control? When you ask this sincerely, a door opens, and through it, something ancient walks in: clarity. That is what Marcus Aurelius found, even while watching friends betray him and enemies plot in shadows. That is what Seneca taught, even as his own death approached, when Nero ordered him to take his life. Seneca didn't protest. He calmly opened his veins, surrounded by students, still teachings his life faded. Why? Because his peace was never dependent on circumstance. Do you feel the weight of that? That level of stillness, of unwavering focus, isn't passivity. It's a mastery of the self so complete that even death loses its sting. That's not philosophy. That's transcendence. And here's the paradox. To achieve that level of control, you must first surrender, not to the world, but to the reality that you are not in charge of most of what happens. You don't control outcomes. You don't control time. You don't control other people, but you do control your response. And that response, when shaped by virtue, clarity, and purpose, becomes your legacy. The Stoics also spoke often of the Logos, the divine order of the universe, the rational intelligence behind all things. To live in alignment with the Logos is to accept that even suffering has a reason, even chaos has a rhythm. When stress strikes, the Stoic doesn't ask, "Why me?" He asks, "What is this moment demanding of me?" And that shift changes everything. But this isn't easy. The path of the Stoic is a razor's edge. It demands vigilance. It asks you to observe your thoughts with surgical precision. It teaches that your first reaction is often the least wise, that silence is more powerful than shouting, that a moment of pause can save a decade of damage. And here's something the ancient texts rarely spell out. Your environment is your battlefield. Modern life was not designed for Stoic living. It is engineered to provoke, to distract, to agitate. The constant stimulation, the flood of opinions, the illusion of urgency, they are poison to the Stoic mind. So, you must become a guardian of your peace. You must learn to carve out stillness, even in a world that worships noise. In this stillness, the deeper Stoic truths begin to whisper. That adversity is sacred. That calm is an act of rebellion. That self-control is not suppression. It is sovereignty. And once you taste it, real sovereignty, you will never trade it again for petty validation or short-lived emotional outbursts. So now, having walked this far, you must ask yourself, am I ready to live like this? Not perfectly, but intentionally. Not coldly, but consciously. Because in the next part, we bring this ancient wisdom into your life, step by step. We make it practical, tangible, unshakable. We will unlock techniques, exercises, and rituals that train your mind to stand firm, even when the world collapses around you. Let's bring it into your hands now, off the scrolls of old, out of the mouths of emperors, and into the rhythm of your day-to-day life. Because wisdom, without application, is like a sword left sheathed in battle. And you, if you're still watching, weren't drawn here for philosophy alone. You came for transformation. So let's begin. The first step is deceptively simple. The pause. The ancients called it prohairesis, your capacity to choose your response. It's the space between stimulus and action. The modern world compresses that space until you feel cornered, forced to react. The Stoic expands it. Practice this. When the heat rises, someone insults you, your plans collapse, fear rushes in, pause, breathe, count to 5. Say nothing, do nothing, just observe. This pause is sacred. It's the doorway to your power. It severs the chain of reactivity and lets reason speak before ego screams. Next is journaling, but not the kind that spills your feelings across the page in chaos. No, this is Stoic journaling. Intentional, focused, like sharpening a blade. Every morning or evening, ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I lose control? How can I prepare for tomorrow's challenges with clarity? These reflections are your mirror. They train your mind like a warrior polishes his sword before each battle. Now take your attention to your breath. Yes, your breath. Because it is the first thing stress hijacks. It shortens, tightens, speeds up. You must reclaim it. Practice what the Stoics might call intentional respiration. Slow, deep, conscious breathing. Especially when the pressure builds. Try the 4-7-8 method. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 7, exhale for 8. Do this 3 times when stress strikes. You'll feel the grip loosen. Let's go deeper. Create a mental sanctuary. The Stoics often retreated inward, visualizing a sacred space, a high cliff above the sea, a quiet temple in the woods, a candlelit chamber inside the self. Find your image. Build it with detail. When the world becomes noise, go there, often. Anchor your stillness in that space until it becomes real, not fantasy, but refuge. Here's a ritual worth adopting: the evening death meditation. Before sleep, reflect as if you will not wake, not in fear, but in clarity. Ask, did I live today with virtue? Did I respond to stress with grace or with weakness? If this were my last sunset, did I honor it? This practice doesn't invite darkness. It brings light to the way you live. It removes pettiness. It reveals what truly matters. And now you must choose your virtues. Stoicism isn't just about what not to do. It's about who to become. Courage, temperance, wisdom, justice. Etch these into your being. When stress arises, don't merely resist the wave. Embody one of these virtues. Ask, what does courage do now? What would wisdom say? How does justice respond? This turns your response from survival into sacred action. Finally, guard your inputs. Your mind is a temple, not a market. What you consume becomes your thoughts, your moods, your lens. Choose silence over gossip, reflection over rage, books over noise. Guard your time like a king guards his fortress gates, because the modern world profits from your distraction, but the Stoic profits from his discipline. With these practices, you begin to rewire the nervous system. Stress no longer dominates. You become the observer, the sculptor of your inner world. Over time, others will notice it too, not because you speak louder, but because you radiate stillness. They'll feel it, that quiet strength, that ancient calm, that rare, unwavering presence that cannot be faked. And the beautiful truth, it's always been there, waiting, buried beneath layers of noise and programming. You're not learning to be stoic. You're remembering that you already are. So now we stand at the edge of this journey. And I ask you, not as a speaker to a viewer, but as one seeker to another, who are you when the world loses its balance? When the ground beneath your life quakes? When expectations shatter? When fear whispers your name in the silence? Who do you become? Because stress does not create your character. It reveals it. It is the great unveiling. And what the Stoics discovered, what they left behind not in temples but in the folds of time, is this eternal truth, that the storm is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is there to remind you that within you there is a place untouched by chaos, a citadel of peace, a temple of choice, a throne where your reason sits, unmoved. And if you can access that place, even for a breath, you are no longer just reacting. You are remembering who you are beyond the noise, beyond the fear, beyond the need to prove or protect or escape. You are the calm. You are the still flame. You are the one who chooses. And now that you know this, you can never unknow it. So the next time stress rises like a wave, pause. Return to that still center. Ask, what is in my control? And act only from that place. Use your breath. Use your journal. Use your mind like a blade, and your heart like a compass. Practice this not once, but daily. Not until you're perfect, but until you're present. You will stumble. You will forget. But each return is a victory. Each quiet choice in the midst of pressure is a seed of strength. And slowly, almost invisibly, you will change. You'll speak less, but say more. You'll react less, but impact more. You'll carry stillness into chaos like a lantern through the dark, and people around you will feel it. Not understand it, perhaps, but feel it. And that is enough. Because the true Stoic doesn't need to be seen. He simply is. And now, if something inside you stirred, if you felt the weight of these words not as theory, but as truth, then don't let it drift away. Hold it. Write in the comments below. I am the calm in the storm. Let it be your vow, a reminder, a marker of this moment when something ancient awoke in you. If this video gave you something real, something you want to return to, then like it, not for vanity, but to spread this flame. Someone you'll never meet may need these words right now. Be the one who passed the torch, and if your soul hungers for more hidden truths, more forgotten wisdom, more clarity in the fog, subscribe. We go deeper with every story. Until next time, stay grounded, stay awake, and remember, you are not here to escape the storm. You are here to become the stillness within it.